And welcome back to Out of the Fog. Well, joining me now for our political chat is James McLeod from The Telegram and Fred Hutton from VOCM. Always a pleasure to have you here in studio. Welcome.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
Good to be back.
All right, so you guys have had a full week covering an interesting story about a particular store in downtown St. John's that was selling marijuana, weed over the counter. Tell us, how did all of this begin? How long has this store been open for?
Well, apparently they've been doing it for about 2 weeks. I think most people it got out on Facebook, and people in the media started hearing about it towards the end of last week, where, yeah, you would go in, you'd fill out a very short form, just basically your name, your address, your phone number, and email address. And then they'd give you this hilarious little membership card, which was basically just a business card that they wrote your name on. And then they'd sell you pot. I mean,
so it was that easy, essentially, just to go in and...
Oh yeah, you had to show ID. They said they wouldn't sell to anyone under 19. But yeah, this isn't, like, they call themselves a medical dispensary, but I didn't have a prescription for anything, and they sold me a gram of pot and some gummy bunnies that had THC in them.
Okay, we'll get back to the gummy bunnies in just a moment, but Fred, you were actually in the lineup.
Yeah, I was in there as well. James actually purchased it. I didn't.
Don't tell the cops.
It's already out, buddy. Remember, you wrote it in your paper. But I stood in line. There was 22 people or 23 people ahead of me, 12 behind. There was no other room in that little area. The lineup went right around. It was basically like a loft apartment on the ground floor with 2 display cases over on the side and the table where you'd fill out this form that James talked about. So the lineup was sort of winding in there, and I watched everybody. Some people did pull out their license. There was a guy there who's probably, I guess, 65. There was a woman there in her late 50s, you know, well-dressed or whatever. Most of the other people were early 20s, sort of set, you know. Mm-hmm. And they were basically just taking these big, large macaroni or mason jars that had handwritten signs taped on it. One was Time Warp, another was Purple Kush. There was a bunch of other different names, and they'd say, which one do you want? What do you want to get sleepy? Do you want to, you know, what effect do you want? So you'd get
different potencies.
Yeah, and I mean, the 2 guys in behind did not appear to be medical doctors to me or pharmacists.
I think that's a fair assessment.
You know, their skateboards were parked outside, for lack of a better, you know, I mean, they sort of fit that stereotype versus what you would see if you were at a Shoppers Drug Mart. Mm-hmm. And they put it on the little scales in a little plastic Tupperware tub to the cost that would, I think it was $28 was what most people would do, and the guy was rounding it up to $30, pouring it in a little baggie, and the people would leave.
Wow. So what was it that really surprised you about this? I mean,
besides the smell?
Well, the smell, but I mean, this is an establishment that's doing this illegally.
Well, this, I mean, that is a big aspect of this, but I mean, the sheer demand for it was astonishing. Where I mean, I was talking to other people in line, and yeah, there were about 30, 35 people packed into this tiny little space, constantly people coming and going, and they were open 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week, flat out the whole time. I showed up on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, and there was a mix-up with the key holder coming down, so they were about 20 minutes late opening. 20 minutes late opening on 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning, and there were 16 people lined up out on the sidewalk waiting first thing in the morning to get some pot. And so to me, this is an expression of the fact that for a huge number of people, they want legal weed. Mm-hmm. They want an avenue, exactly what Justin Trudeau has promised. You know, please give us a place where we can go in a storefront, so it's not a sketchy back alley, so it's not like you know, someone who feels like a criminal element, and just go to a place, exchange money for, you know, a recreational product, and go home.
So it is that you're trying, you know, there is some positivity, I guess, in this in one regard, that people want a safe place.
2 guys I spoke with both have anxiety, depression. They showed me their medical prescriptions, their cards from their doctors. They are legit, but they have to figure out where to get this stuff. So the 2 young fellows that I spoke to, my guess would be 22, 23, were, you know, just, if you didn't know, you'd never know. Normal looking young fellows. And both said it's just more comfortable to go in there, that they're not in an apartment, that they don't know the people, they don't know what they're getting, what's in it. And I said, well, you really don't know what's in this either, do you? He said, no, but at least the process of getting it sort of defeats the purpose of what we're doing, because I'm so anxious I need marijuana, but then I'm so anxious because I got to go meet a total stranger and try to, you know, give him my money and get this. And in this environment, I feel safer.
And
that's what they said.
And the fact is that this is illegal. I mean, the law has not changed. This is still completely illegal. But the point that quite a number of people made in emails to me or comments on social media.
Because there has been a lot of feedback on this particular story.
A hot topic of conversation. But the fact of the matter is, you know, if you want to smoke some pot, there's no shortage of places to get it around town. Mm-hmm. This is a storefront where you can keep track of it, where you know what's going on. I mean, if you get some bad stuff, you can go back and talk to, like, it's a much more sort of safe, sensible, controlled way to let this happen, as opposed to just, you know, in the back alleys, in people's apartments, meeting some guy in a parking lot. And so in that sense, it kind of makes a lot of sense to me, the fact that in other cities, the police have said, this isn't worth our time to prosecute. Here, obviously, just a couple days after the story broke, the shop was raided by the police, and we're now told that there are charges pending. But the fact of the matter is, in a city the size of Toronto, with the number of dispensaries that have opened up there, it doesn't surprise me that the police are saying, you can get it a million places anyway, so...
Yeah, they've got bigger fish to fry.
Right.
This isn't worth our time and effort, and it's not hurting anyone.
I did see the little tray in the bottom. The one thing that sort of surprised me, and it was just this, like a Tupperware with maybe some wax paper in it, and it said shatter, and a handwritten note, purple shatter, or grape shatter. So I was thinking, okay, I've read a dozen stories about that being a very dangerous drug.
Right.
My question is if we knew about this on Saturday, Monday is when we went down to do the story, you knew about it on Sunday, media knew about it, everybody I spoke to down there said it's all over Facebook, why it took 2 weeks to shut down.
Right. Okay, we're going to leave it there, but I mean, obviously still lots of questions to be answered,
Absolutely.
like that one, and I guess we'll see what happens from here on in.
And in other cities, the police have raided these places and they've opened right back up afterwards. And so this is not going away. There's a real question what happens from here.
Okay, all right. I want to move on now because we have a few minutes left, but yesterday, of course, marked the Premier, Dwight Ball's first anniversary as Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. Wondering your take. I know in a couple weeks' time, we're all going to sit down and we're going to have a nice chat about, of course, what 2016 entailed for this province and the Liberal government. But when you kind of reflect back on this past year, there was obviously lots of challenges that they have faced. Did it get any better as we lead to where we are right now, do you think?
It seems to have sort of stabilized somewhat. I mean, to go through the budget and the Ed Martin fiasco, you know, I don't think anybody was hugely shocked when they found out that the HST was going to actually increase, you know. I don't think there was any huge, I mean, nobody liked it, but, you know, I don't think it could have gotten any worse than it did after the budget and with the whole Nalcor situation. They seem to have a handle on that. Turmoil within the Premier's office, you know, the Chief of Staff, the Director of Communications leaving, one of the senior advisors also going. It's been a tough start.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if some of it was avoidable, probably, but you know, 2017.
And communication, when you brought up communication, obviously there was a big turner, but there was lots of issues in regards to communication.
Well, absolutely, and you know, the messages weren't getting out properly.
Yeah, well, and things do seem to have stabilized a fair bit on that front, where there's still lots of things to criticize the government, notably the fact that they seem to move pretty slowly on a lot of things. But the House of Assembly is open right now, and there have been quite a significant number of policy-heavy pieces of legislation moving through. They've reformed public procurement in a huge way, which is deathly boring, but stands to potentially save the government, you know, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars a year. They've been sort of quietly doing a lot of things right, where the first 6 months of the year, they were sort of getting in their own way, and there were a lot of self-inflicted scandals. There was the Christian flag on the flagpole. There was a whole Ed Martin severance scandal. There was the promises that they immediately had to break. We're seeing less of those sort of self-inflicted wounds, and you know, it's anyone's guess whether this good run of things will continue, but it seems like Premier Ball is hitting his stride a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Do you think lessons learned when you talk about self-inflicting wounds and, you know, just as, you know, as if they were to take a reflect, I guess, back on the last year?
Well, I mean, it's easy to sit here in an armchair or a couch or whatever and criticize it when you're not up there doing it. But, you know, when you cover it for a long time, you can just look at some of the things that have happened and realize how this could have gone so much better for them. You know, the whole Ed Martin thing could have been just, hey, you know, this project is off the rails. This guy's out. You know, you don't fire the whole team when the team is losing. You fire the manager. The manager's gone. We're going to try something new. The deal that's in place for him was there before me. Not like, oh, I knew, who knew, okay, all the emails came on the private account, and who knew what, and was he fired, did he quit? You know, all of that could have been avoided.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we are out of time already. I'd leave it there. I want to thank you both very much for joining me, and we'll see you on, well, in the next couple of weeks. Of course, we'll have our year-end discussion and reflect back on the last year. Thanks very much.
It's been a horrible year.
I get a little indication as to what our chat will entail, so make sure you join us again.
Thank God 2016 is done.
But you did get to buy some pot. By the way, what did you do with it?
No comment.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, we're going to leave that there, folks. We'd love to hear your thoughts on anything, of course, discussed. We'd love to have you call us, 757-9600. You can email your comment to outofthefog@rci.rogers.com. We will be right back. Stay with us.